Shit, boy, RP on the track.
Yo, what's going on, big family? It's your dog, the Ultra Melanite, coming to you live and direct once again from Charleston, South Carolina, aka the Holy City, you dig? And today we're going to discuss some more indigenous American culture, namely the Maroons, you dig? Who are the Maroons? Well, if you ask us here at the village, if you are a so-called black person in the southeastern United States, or in Central America, or in Mexico, or in the islands, you dig, on, South America, Brazil, Guyana, French Guyana, Suriname, all of these places, you dig, most likely you are descended from one of these maroon cultures. So understand that the word maroon is a very, very broad term to identify some of the indigenous people who were here at the time of the colonists' arrival. I'm talking about the Arawaks, the Caribs, and the Tainos. You dig? I think that that's makes up a pretty big part of the indigenous cultures that the colonists first met when they arrived. You know what I'm saying? We got similar cultures all throughout the United States and South America and Central America. We pretty much are coastal people at this time. You know what I'm saying? Eating a lot of fish, eating crabs, eating shrimp, grits, rice. It's a lot of things about our culture that are very similar to each other, you dig? So, y'all know we deal with grammar right here in the village. Let's start with the grammar behind the word maroon. It actually comes from a Latin word, which is cimarron, which translates into wild runaway, you dig? And if you know your language, if you know your grammar, you know that the word Seminole also comes from the word cimarron. So the word Seminole and the word maroon are the exact same word spoken from a different dialect. I know that's hard for a lot of people to understand because we always get people cutting up, but the word Seminole and the word maroon from a linguistic point of view are the same word. Now we know the Seminole as being a nation is separate from the classification of the word maroon. So the Seminoles are a nation of maroon peoples, or they were a nation of maroon people, you dig? So, you know what I'm saying? And that nation right there extended from South Carolina to into Florida and into the islands, you dig? That's why we got such similar cultures all along this little coastline, you dig? So, boom. I guess the next thing would be, why is it that everybody thinks that this maroon culture originated in Africa when, in fact, it originated right here? When logic and common sense tells us that most of the aspects about these indigenous maroon cultures originated in America, for some reason we still want to attribute these things to our brothers in Africa. You dig? When it originated right here. You dig? So let me explain the term fugitive and runaway. You know what I'm saying? First, we'll use it in perspective of the Seminole, because most people would agree that the Seminole is an indigenous culture right here in the southeastern United States. Most people agree with that, right? Well, the word Seminole comes from the word Cimarron, which means runaway. All right. What were these people running away from if this is their home? You dig? So when we attribute that same word, that same logic to the word maroon, what were those people running away from? That did not mean runaway slaves, you dig? And that's not why the Seminole Nation was freeing these people who were captured. They were freeing the people who were captured because it was their people that they were freeing. And they were freeing them and then bringing them down to a territory down in Florida that they had secured, a stronghold that they had secured down in Florida, because the British had kept attacking them. The English had kept attacking them, boy. I get them confused. British, English, one or the other. You dig? Kept attacking them, boy. You know what I'm saying? So that's how the term fugitive applies to them, because we always resisted that government. We always resisted that enslavement. You dig? Most of our people didn't become enslaved until the future after that so-called slavery had been abolished. You dig what I'm saying? Most of us became enslaved through assimilation through later on, but during the time of the Gullah Wars or the Yamasee Wars or the Seminole Wars, our people totally resisted being enslaved. And that's how we ended up with that stronghold down in Florida and strongholds in Georgia and strongholds in South Carolina because we had secured places where we said, dog, y'all ain't welcome here. We gonna keep our own indigenous heritage. And if you realize, that's why our cultures here still are a little bit different than the cultures from the rest of our brothers across the United States. Our culture in South Carolina, Florida, and Georgia is very similar to the culture in Brazil or Jamaica or Haiti, you dig, or Belize or Honduras, you dig. Our culture here is very similar to that. Even the dialects that we speak, all of us are considered those Creole people because, like I explained in an earlier video, the word Creole itself it means that it's a mixture between a base language and an indigenous culture. So there is no proof that our cultures are dominated by African slaves. And we're going to put pictures up on the screen of these indigenous Maroon cultures. The biggest misconception about the word Maroon, because when you go on Wikipedia, you're not saying Wikipedia mess you up. When you go on Wikipedia, they're going to tell you that the Maroons were a culture developed from runaway slaves. You dig? Nah, maybe runaway slaves that been enslaved on their own land, but that ain't really much been the case. These people been fleeing from the wars. They've been trying to secure them a stronghold after the war. So there's really no proof that the African culture dominated our culture. And I don't want anybody to feel disrespected about that. I mean, I know a lot of people nowadays are proud of the nationality of Africanism, man. That's cool, you know what I'm saying? I ain't got no, but that's all on y'all. But when we talk about this scientifically, the reason why these people claim our lands and we have no claim to the land that we live on nowadays is because y'all attribute yourself to another nation instead of recognizing who you are right here. Now, we're not trying to tell you that some of us don't have an African element. What we trying to tell y'all is that if 60,000 African slaves came to Charleston, which they say 60,000 African slaves came to Charleston, that 95% of them been men anyway. So if they were to recreate, they were recreating or procreating with European women and indigenous so-called black women from the land that they were conquering, you dig? Because most of them Africans that came here understand that they came here on their own free will. You know, it's not like they came here in shackles. The ones that came here in shackles did not make babies. You dig? They came as prisoners of war. They did not make babies. There was no such thing as breeding camps. You dig? That's BS. There were quartering systems where they used these housing projects type of things to break down our DNA and our genetics, mixing bloods, mixing cultures, making these Creole cultures. You dig? But there's no such thing as breeding houses. The slaves that came here shackled up, them boy didn't make babies, dog. I ain't never met a man in jail to make a baby, you dig? All right, so last thing I want to say right quick, I want to reiterate the fact that, all right, the word maroon is a very, very broad term. And I ain't saying that we right on everything. We ain't God. You dig what I'm saying? We ain't the creator. We could be wrong. You dig? But for us, we feel like most of the cultures, the so-called black cultures in the southeastern United States or in Mexico or in Central America or on any of the islands or in the east coast of South America, all of these cultures we consider to be the Maroon people. We consider them to be the descendants of the Arawaks, the Carib, and the Taino peoples. You dig what I'm saying? The pre-colonial groups that inhabited a lot of these areas. You dig? Now, like I said, we could be wrong. We're not 100% perfect, you know what I'm saying? And As y'all see, I go off the top of my head, you dig? So if you got anything to correct, man, please let us know in the comments down below. We would love that. We want a lot of interaction between us, you dig what I'm saying? We building, you know what I'm saying? We ain't tearing each other down. We building on this nation, you dig what I'm saying? So, color people, Maroon people, all us family, you dig? Hold them down. Ultra Melanite out, 2018, baby.